Hello everyone, my name is Michael from Loxahatchee, Florida. I'm 23 years old. I just turned 23 May 1st. And I wanted to make this video because I wanted to discuss my experiences within this past year about my illness. The problem is I'm not really sure exactly what it is. I was diagnosed with the ear infection around March of last year, and I had an ear infection in both sides, more so in the right ear. The problem was though is that I didn't feel experience any ear pain, any atypical ear infection, because I've had them before when I was younger and they're very painful. So this was very interesting that I didn't have any pain. But what I noticed was when I had the ear infection, I had terrible dizziness problems. I felt like I couldn't walk. It was just like disturbing, and I couldn't catch quite a grasp on what it was, because at the time I didn't know it was dizziness. I thought it was more of a heart problem. I thought that it was a fainting issue, because I felt like, well, why is every time that I try and walk that I feel like I'm gonna faint or fall over. And then I finally realized that, okay, I did a balance test on myself, and I tried and stand still after I learned about, the vestibular system. Like, wow, this did damage me somehow, because now when I try and stand still, it's always a constant, moving, and I didn't realize that until now. I went to go see an otolaryngologist. He suggested that it could have been something wrong with my cerebellum, but he highly doubted that. He said he'd have to get an MRI to rule that out. But that was last August, and I didn't have any health insurance at the time. I do now have health insurance, thank God. So I'm gonna go schedule an MRI. But from what I've heard from you guys is that, and by the way, you guys are amazing with how I don't know where I'd be, to be honest. But other than that, you guys say that MRI. It's so hard to pinpoint this, labyrinthitis. So what good would it be to go get an MRI? But, I'm still going to follow my doctor's orders and get an MRI. I'm probably going to have to switch doctors, though. The only thing that was diagnosed at the hospital when I went, because I was feeling very dizzy, was a CAT scan was performed, a CT scan on my brain and in my whole head. And the only thing they found was a fluid collection in my sinuses. So I don't know if that had anything to do with that. So they kept telling me sinus infection, but I was diagnosed with an ear infection, and I kept telling them that, and I kept telling them I've had all these problems, but maybe it could have been allergies and it was misdiagnosed. I've heard so many horror stories about how this stuff is misdiagnosed. So on my personal opinion, the doctors haven't diagnosed it yet, because I haven't been able to get to the doctor, and the doctor even suggested it might have been vestibular, and by vestibular, it's got to be vestibular neuritis or labyrinthitis, which I believe are one and the same, but I'm sure there's some opinions out there that differ, but in my opinion, I think they're pretty much the same from what I understand. Even if I did get a diagnosis, I don't know if that would change anything, because honestly, I felt like I've had this all along. So if someone came along and said, "Oh, you have labyrinthitis," I would say, no crap, Sherlock, because that's the way I've always felt. So, I've had so many symptoms associated with it that I didn't understand. And a lot of people say, well, you're not supposed to go on the internet and look up your symptoms. And I don't do that at all. It's just that when I have something that affects you that bad, and you don't have anyone who kind of understands you or can help you diagnose, you kind of get frustrated. And at this point, you're already so frustrated. So, what else are you going to do? So, I'm not a doctor, and I know you're not supposed to diagnose yourself, especially as a patient. But in my opinion, I would have to diagnose myself and say, okay, this is what it is. And I'd hate to do that with any illness, but that's what I have to believe for myself. So, but for me, the most part, it's been over a year, and I would have to say that I went from being bedridden for 3 or 4 weeks to, virtually bedridden. I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to stay at home and just relax and relax and relax until I got better. And then, slowly I could, rehabilitate myself. At the time, I couldn't even walk down the street. And, and at that time I was over, 400 pounds, so it was hard. So, now that I've lost a lot of weight, I think that had a lot to help do with just, the blood pressure problems and all that, which is great. That's a gift, that I've been able to keep focused and stay on track and be determined to achieve my goal. And I'm still working on that goal, admittedly. But I think, being heavy exacerbated the symptoms a little bit. So I'm glad that I got most of the weight off, which is good. But, the symptoms that I've had, I mean, it's so hard. No one understands this because my family just thinks that I'm a nutcase, and they all throw names at me and taunt, like they even sometimes make fun of me. But I'm the stronger person. I'm very close to my family, but they kind of make fun of me in a funny way, and then sometimes they'll get mad in an argument and then throw me that way. So it's hard. But I don't know. It's just the other day, today, I was explaining to my sister. I said, the shower in there, I don't like taking a shower in there, and I like taking a shower in this room. She said, what's the difference? This is a shower, this is a shower. They're both the same. I said, for you it's the same, but for me it's that shower is like a half of a tub, so it's uneven. And when I was in there, I felt like, I was standing on it, and I could feel just this weird force, something, it's like acting a dizziness, but it's like that feeling when you get up on the elevator and you get pushed up, and then I get that sensation, but it's not like true spinning, like vertigo, but it's more just like a sensation where you just feel like you're not right. You're just spinning in your head or in your mind or whatever it may be. And that's why I like taking a shower in the flat shower, because I do much better in there, even though I'm still dizzy. I still get sensitive to car rides. I still get sensitive to fluorescent lights. I hate grocery stores now. I've never had such a hard time in my life in not being able to enjoy grocery shopping, because I used to love going to warehouse stores like Costco and going grocery shopping, and now I feel like that's a thing of the past. And it's I don't know, it's sometimes I look in the mirror and I wonder okay, well, it's like being a changed person, because it really is a disease. So it's I've kind of mourned the loss of the person that I once was, and I don't feel like the same Michael anymore. I just feel like a completely different creature, and it's just, it's almost sad. It's I have to mourn the loss of my old self. And I know that may sound dark and depressing, but that's how I honestly feel. And I think that getting your emotions off your chest is the best in the situation, because it's a lot to deal with. It really does suck. But, and another thing that bothers me is I get constant, sometimes I get headaches. I don't know why. I'll get the aura, and I had migraines back when I was 12 years old, and I had a spell of migraines for about 2 months, where I would just black out for 2 days on end, where I would get, such a bad migraine that I would just, black out and then wake up, 24 hours later. It was just bad. And that's when we were really stressed out. That's when we were moving. So I think that had a lot to do with it. But, now I get the auras every day. And even today, I was at one of my lodge meetings for masonry, and we were doing a prayer before we ate, and we had to close our eyes and look down, but the fluorescent lights were on, so when my eyes were closed, I could still see light in there, and I could see the aura moving around. But I was sitting there holding hands in this communion circle, and it's I'm sitting there and just dizzy, and I couldn't, I don't know, it was just tough, and it's big open spaces and stuff. I was at the lodge, and it was just in the meeting room, and it was just everything was just it's big open spaces. So I'm looking around, and I feel I get dizzy because everything is so far away. I'm just woo, you know, you get that woozy feeling, and it sucks, you know. And it's like, it's so hard to like stay focused on one person, because you feel like, okay, well, if I stay focused on them, I'm gonna, you know, turn my head and just boom, you know, be, you know, like a fish out of water. And that's what I've been feeling like for a year now, and it really sucks. But other than that, I just wanted to say that, you know, it's great to have a support group, a social group, because without this explanation from another person, their perspective and their experience with it, no one who doesn't have experience with it can understand. It's like talking to someone who has cancer and saying, oh, well, you know, cancer is not that bad. And then you say, well, have you ever had cancer? No. Well, gee, well, how the hell can you understand? You know? But I just think that there needs to be a lot more knowledge about it and more education about it, because a lot of people don't seem to understand. You know, it's like people, I don't know, it's like they'll kind of like make fun of you, which is the worst thing you can do for someone who's experienced, you know, going through hell. I've honestly thought about calling it devil's disease, because it really is like, you know, it's like the worst thing that you could ever wish upon someone, and you wouldn't wish it upon someone, you know. And it's like making fun of someone with epilepsy. Would you make fun of someone with epilepsy if they had an epileptic seizure? No, of course not. Well, why? Well, because it's an illness. So why do people not understand us, or they make fun of us and say, wow, he acts really weird and he can't do this and that and he gets dizzy? And it's like, well, hey, if you did some research, you would find out that it's an actual neurological illness that affects the brain, that affects the inner workings of, you know, it's like a computer chip. You know, you have damage in one little part and it just affects the whole thing. So they wonder why you're so, you know, effed up, you know, but I don't know. But if you're going through this in the early stages, just hang on. You know, it does get better. I'll admit, I do have bad days, and I'm not perfect. And, you know, things that seem to make it worse for me are stress, anxiety. Well, I mean, that comes with it. You know, it's a vicious circle. But if you can control the anxiety and stress, another thing is lack of sleep. I mean, I was pretty tired today. I stayed up late last night, and I was busy today. So I'm definitely tired, but, you know, get some sleep, because neurologically sleep is the best thing you can do for your system. So without it, as a normal person, you're going to suffer. With this, twofold or sevenfold, you know. So just, you know, drink your water, you know, stay hydrated, you know, exercise, do everything you can, because those things will help you. Take your B vitamins, take your magnesium, you know, try and be on top of your game, because this thing can crush you or you can crush it. I'd rather be the latter, you know. So just, you know, hang on in there. And it's great to have a social group to support, like I said. So we all need to help each other in any sort of way, because we're all in this together. So, you know, it's great that we do that. But end of rant. But thank you for watching my video. Take care, guys. Hope you guys feel better.